Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits. Hello, primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! Wow, I'm excited today. Wow, you can find us and all our excitement in other places on the internet at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Twitter. Not that I've looked at Twitter in a while. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. There's a Facebook page, appropriately called Primus Tracks, and that is maintained by my friend who also maintains all 38 stories of Primus Tracks towers in Mexico City, Frankie Berestein.
Hi, Josh.
How you doing, Frankie?
I'm great. Thanks. What about you?
Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened, but I'm a little hopped up on the goofballs this afternoon. And the reason for that is we get to talk once again with one of our favorites. We haven't gotten to talk to him for a while, but we tracked him down. He's back in the country. Anthony Garcia, welcome back to Primus Tracks.
Howdy, everybody.
Good to see you, pal.
You too. Thanks for having me.
As I said before we pressed record, I just get so giddy when I see somebody for the first time in a long time. So I'm really happy you're here. We are talking about MIRV's Cosmodrome today. It is one of the many albums that was released in the first iteration, I suppose, or the first wave of Prawn Song Records releases in the mid-90s. We took a detour with Sausage, and rightfully so, but we're back on the Prawn Song train for a moment to talk about MIRV's Cosmodrome. And the reason we are dedicating an entire episode to this particular record is that one Les Claypool is all over the thing. And Anthony, you're a MIRV scholar of a sort. You've seen MIRV 78, 79 times, maybe. I mean, growing up in the Bay Area, they were playing all over the place all the time. We know MIRV gigs like crazy. So this is the first record, and then the band really took its form that was well known in, I'd say, a few years after that. I'd say 96, 97, roughly. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but through the end of that decade, we got a couple more records, and the lineup solidified, and my God, that band had quite a following in the Bay.
Yeah, they did. They're like local legends. Like, they were never like super famous, but like so many people here just know about them. Whether, you know, it's word of mouth or like, I know someone whose uncle is best friends with Brian Kehoe, or like, you know, it's like these weird connections, or I saw them open for so-and-so, or like, oh yeah, I saw their music video. And, you know, it's kind of one of those Bay Area things where you're only 1 degree separated from everyone here, or if you're or closer, you know, and you just never realized it.
And they, you saw a bunch of shows, so I imagine they were packing the clubs, and it was just a riot given some of the stage antics that Merv and Brian and company got up to. So what are some Merveries that you have from some of these shows?
Oh, man. Let's see here. I'm trying to recall all of these events, because, I mean, I've seen them a lot of times. So The very first time I saw them was playing a one-off Holy Mackerel show in 1998, which was awesome.
Wow.
I saw them at a 420 show back in 2011, I want to say it was.
Oh, wow.
And that was in Oakland at this rehearsal space, but like on the bottom floor of the rehearsal space, they have like this lobby area. And I think they kind of do regular shows. I don't really know too much about it, the location, but that was really interesting. That was one of those like no one is watching without like red eyes kind of moments. that was a hoot and a holler. Geez, I saw them a lot at the Phoenix Theater between 98 and 2002. So those all just kind of blend together, and like sometimes it was like a really big showing, and sometimes it was like barely anyone there, just because maybe it was like a weeknight, and you're just like, I get this somewhat private MIRV show in this giant like giant theater, and so that was really cool. I think probably one of the most memorable ones was seeing them playing with Gene Hogland, the living legend.
Yeah, the human
as
metronome.
We were talking about. Yeah, as we were talking about before the podcast. Yeah. Man, that guy. God, he's an amazing drummer. And so just to even know that like they played together, it's yeah, God, I would have flown out anywhere to go see that show. But yeah, that was amazing.
I can't imagine he had much time to rehearse for that, but just to get him up there to play. For those of you unfamiliar, Gene Hoglan, probably best known for his work with Testament for quite a long time, and he is a killer metal drummer. But then he's playing MIRV songs. That must be a hoot.
Yeah, I know him from a band called Strapping Young Lad that he was in with Devin Townsend in the 90s and 2000s. And so I knew him as just like this brutal metal drummer as well. And then it's just like, oh, he's playing with MIRV? What? Okay, let's do this.
Let's see how this fits. It was probably perfect too.
Oh, yeah. And then, one of the most well-known stage antics of MIRV was whenever they play O Sole Mio and Brian Kehoe goes to hit that high note. And then MIRV just goes and grabs him by the groin to get him just into pitch.
They would do that during Frog Brigade shows as well.
Yeah.
O Sole Mio was part of the set lists.
When was Kehoe involved with Frogs?
Yep. There's actually a really amazing New Year's Eve show. It's 2003, I believe. It's an incredible show.
Oh, it has to be a New Year's Eve. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's when all the friends come out.
Yes.
Oh, all right. I'm going to go check that one out. It's probably the best O Sole Mio you're ever going to hear.
Hell yeah.
And you've heard a bunch of them, Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
When he's now MIRV is a multi-instrumentalist, and we're going to talk about that. But did you ever get to see him bust out the saw?
Oh, yeah, tons of
saw.
times.
Oh,
yeah,
so cool.
It's a saw with a distortion pedal taped on or mounted on somehow. And I'm like, dude, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And he's bowing it, right, with a horsehide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the other cool thing about MIRV is like he'll actually sing the notes that he's doing on a solo as he's playing them. So he's like
that can be seen during the Fancy Show from 2008.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Frankie's encyclopedic memory is so impressive right now.
But I mean, yeah, he's amazing. He's so talented. And this album is really cool because this comes out like right after Limbo Maniacs. So he's a go-go funk guitarist. And then hear all this. I don't know how long the material existed before it got recorded, but this was really shortly after Limbo Maniacs.
Yeah. This album, MIRV's Cosmodrome, has a release date of 1993, or at least has a copyright date of 1993 on the sleeve. And so Limbo's, we should kind of trace that lineage. MIRV cut his teeth playing with a billion bands, as Dave Lefquist told us a while back. Whatever name they would take so they could play the club for a few bucks. But it was pretty much the Limbos, those four guys, Pete, MIRV, House, and Brain. But MIRV really, I think, came to the fore with Limbo Maniacs, and they got a record deal. Unfortunately, it didn't go very far. But then, as you said, shortly after this, Les founds Prawn Song Records, and I'm sure just by virtue of gigging all over the Bay Area and playing with the Limbos dozens of times and being managed by the same guy, they became good friends. And Les wanted to record this album. And wow, what a debut album it is.
Besides what Anthony said, that he can actually sing the notes he's playing.
Yeah.
He's actually got a really incredible range of vocal styles. I mean, he can scat, right? He can do that while he's on stage. He can reach a really high pitch. He can go really low. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he can also do Tibetan monk throat singing.
Oh, wow. Did you get to see all those on stage, Anthony, including the throat singing?
Yeah, Unabomber is a really good example of that.
Right. Yeah. That's a fun one to mimic, and it's really tough because you have to get down there and I am the Unabomber. It's tough.
Yeah. And so he's doing that, but it's very resonant. Like you just see the shockwaves going off of his chest when he's doing that live, man. It's great. You feel it in your chest, man. Like when it's amplified so loud through a house system, a PA system, it's just like, man.
Oh yeah,
it's trippy.
That low register is just pummeling you, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's really important to note about MIRV is he is an incredibly talented person, and he is one of three people who you guys probably remember this, on Buckethead's website, there was this hidden page that said the 3 greatest guitarists of all time, and it's MIRV, Larry Lalonde, and oh shit, I forget the third. Anyway, MIRV's one of Buckethead's top 3 guitarists of all time, and it shows throughout all the work MIRV does. And I think the thing that sets him apart from so many guitarists, and there have been these testimonials from all these musicians that we've talked to who know MIRV, they say, that guy can play anything. He can play any genre, just plug and play, he'll go. He's that good, and he makes it sound authentic. And this first record is a showcase for that. I remember buying this CD, and here's the booklet right here. I still have it. It's in decent shape, too. I bought this CD. I must have gotten it off eBay or something in the late 90s when I was really trying to round out my Primus collaborator world. I was so glad I bought this one because it really opened my ears to different kinds of music that I knew about but didn't have much affinity for or really have a way in the door. And of course, I'm talking about, some of the surfing stuff, some of the down-home twanging stuff. Anthony, and then go to Frankie. What are your just collective thoughts or just your first reactions upon listening to this record the first time you did?
God, so this was interesting because I had already known about MIRV through their later records. So
yeah.
Feeding Time on Monkey Island was like, okay, that's MIRV. Dancing Naked in a Minefield, that's MIRV. And then when I heard this one, I was like, this sounds way different than all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But then it holds its own. I would listen to this record kind of like in a shuffle as with all my other music, and so like these songs would just kind of pop up from time to time, and it's like it's cool because it really is like a variety show of a record, but at the same time it plays itself like a movie. There's a lot of Foley involved, and there's these little bits in between songs which they continue to do. There are all these spoken word, like theatrical themes, characters in other releases, but this one like really showcases that.
Yeah, and in the liner notes, they're labeled vignettes with all the spoken word and the sounds, which create the world of the Cosmodrome, which we'll get into in a bit. I'm glad you used the term variety show. I think that's apt.
Yeah.
Frankie, how about you? You've said before, some of these satellite projects, which we'll call them because they're in the universe, but they're kind of off the Primus planet or Les Claypool planet to a degree. What are you hearing on this record in general?
I'm by no means a MIRV expert, but I greatly admire his talent as a musician, as a singer, as a composer. I think that when he's on stage with Les, incredible things happen. I would say that, my assessment of his records is that they are certainly interesting. And something that I look forward to when I heard them for the first time was identifying, the studio version or the original version of things that Les would tease with him on stage. Because we know that a lot of MIRV material makes it onto the set when he's playing with Les.
Oh, great point. So that was your introduction or your point of investigation. That's a great... I think because I had gotten the records or heard the records before really the Frog Brigade took off, I guess I didn't have that path. Thanks for that, Frankie. Let's go down our credits. First of all, we have MIRV Cosmodrome, released on Prawn Song Records in 1993. The credits say something familiar to you guys. Another recording from The Corn.
I didn't realize that until today. Because I looked it up to see like, oh, wait, that guitar kind of sounds like a harmonica. Is that actually a harmonica? And then I looked at, the roster and everything. I was like, The Corn. Oh my God. All right, cool. There was a lot of stuff that actually went on down at The Corn.
Yeah. So the Sausage record, the first Charlie Hunter record, the MIRV record, all recorded at the Corn, aka Les's house in Berkeley, California, before he moved out to the Sticks and created Rancho Relaxo. And it goes on to say produced by MIRV, Haggard, and Les Claypool. The whole thing was tracked at the Corn except for 2 tracks, Souvlaki and Jumpin' Bones. We're going to hear a portion of Jumpin' Bones later. And they were tracked and mixed elsewhere. But then it goes on to say, engineered by Les Claypool and MIRV, except for Souvlaki and Jumpin' Bones. Engineered by Pete Scaturo and Cookie Marenko. Pete Scaturo, of course, keyboard player from Limbo Maniacs, who went on to a lucrative career playing all kinds of music. I believe he ended up doing a lot of TV work. Pete did.
Yeah, some video game work too, I think.
Well. Very good.
Yeah.
And then Les Claypool mixed this one as well at the Korn, and then they sent it off for digital editing to Different Fur Studios, another familiar name in Primus lore, and Bay Area lore, of course. So just right there, we know that this is in the Les Claypool incubator. His name is all over this thing, just on those credits. Then you turn the page and you look at the musicians. Ready for this? This is going to blow your face off. Musicians, all guitars and saw, MIRV, of course. Vocals, MIRV and Grandad. Pause. Raise your hand if you know who Grandad is.
It's Les, right?
It's Les, indeed. So one of his many pseudonyms, Les goes by Grandad. Here and there, of course, Grandad's little ditty would be a clue from Sailing the Seas of Cheese. So all vocals are MIRV and Grandad, a.k.a. Les Claypool. Bass, House, Grandad, MIRV throughout the different tracks. Drums, Brain, and Grandad. So Les is on vocals, bass, and drums throughout this record, but MIRV, of course, went back to the Limbo's well, and he got Pete Scaturo, House, and Brain to help him out. Speaking of Pete, he is credited as Machines, or 4 Machines, on this record, as well as House, and also played Hammond organ on a track. So those are just the musicians. Les, the Limbomaniacs, and there you go. Les and the Limbomaniacs making a MIRV record. And then there's all these characters. So we were talking about those vignettes. I think, just as an aside, the record itself is only 11 tracks, I believe. But when you look at the songs list in the notes, you've got 12 songs and then a whole bunch of vignettes. So the vignettes are crammed onto the tracks. So they're not physically separated by track numbers. And so, you said, Anthony, you would put this thing on shuffle, and it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, you're tossed into this concept album, and you're going, oh yeah, these guys are loading this truck and bitching about something. I just want to hear the song. Sometimes. That's how sometimes I feel about these tracks. But to me, it's a singular experience, so I often just take it in as one whole unit. But running down the characters who have some voices. Train Track Buddy, Grandad. Drunk Dad, played by Brian Kehoe. I couldn't think of a better voice for that. Dogs, Lolo and Dingo. I don't know whose dogs those are. I'd love to know. Truck Loaders, Kurt Cottrell and MIRV. Future Roy is Kurt Cottrell. Club owner, Frank Mantia, who I believe is Brain's dad. I don't know if you have any insight on that, Anthony.
No, okay. I don't.
Teeny Bopper Girls are Deirdre and Maria Blake. The Seductress, who we're going to hear her voice, because I picked one of those clips, is Karen Reynolds. Annoying Phone Caller, Barney Leeson. Roy's mom is the lady next door. I don't know what that means. If MIRV just did some kind of ambient recording of his neighbor. I don't know. The news reporter is House. Old Guys in the Tunnel, MIRV and Grandad. The physician beautician is credited as Pipe Wrench. I don't know who that is. Some of these names I don't know. And Zuwart, the tunnel announcer, is none other than Trows.
What a guy.
There you go. Trows Cuevas made it onto the record. So a lot of familiar names from the Primus world and greater Bay Area scene. Great list. So MIRV was able to enlist all these people, with or without Les's help. I'm sure they loved getting all their friends in to record these goofy things at the Korn and have a great time with it to create this concept record. So, quick overview of the story of the Cosmodrome. I should probably give you guys some prior knowledge here first. Now, MIRV, M-I-R-V, isn't actually MIRV's name. His name's Marc Haggard. But MIRV itself, MIRV, is an abbreviation in the military world for Multiple Independent Reentry Vehicle, which would mostly be on a nuclear warhead or a ballistic missile. Pretty cool name, actually, for a band, I gotta say, given what it stands for. Nuclear annihilation is on the table already, and that's actually something that takes place on this record, so the name fits. And then a Cosmodrome, and I'm just reading straight out of a source, you guys, I'm not any expert on this, but it's the Cosmodrome is the world's first spaceport for human and orbital launches out into space. there's a specific one called the Baikonur, I hope I'm saying that right, Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, largely controlled by Russia. But I believe that's the Cosmodrome that is referenced here because on the credits page, on the legal stuff page, which I love that they call it legal stuff, all music, copyright 1993, Baikonur Music. Okay, so close enough to the name of the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for me. MIRV didn't cut any corners on this. Pretty cool.
He spared no expense.
I believe this was actually recorded in Kazakhstan in the Cosmodrome. And this is a story about annihilation and Armageddon. This is, to go quickly, there's this kid. He's playing guitar. He's not that great at it. But I believe he finds a guitar that all of a sudden he's playing really, really, really well. And he starts getting some press and he's playing clubs. All these people are saying, this guy's going to be the next one. He's going to be the next big thing. And then there's this huge explosion, I guess, this Armageddon of a sort. And then all of a sudden, we're in a world of sewer people, for lack of a better term. And I'm interpreting this loosely. And in order for Roy, in the future, who is apparently living after this Armageddon, in order for him to have a chance with his guitar, he has to go into the Cosmodrome to perform. But to do so, he has to shave his face off, which is a wonderfully thinly veiled metaphor for losing your own identity in order to become famous. And there's a big old performance at the end. I won't ruin the end of the story for you because I do want you to check out Cosmodrome. But MIRV sets up this world, and I think he does a pretty good job doing that with the dialogue and the audio and the songs paired together. And it's accompanied by a comic book that was released to help promote the record. There's some really cool ads, of course, for the record in the comic book. You can also get a very brief peek of a young lady reading the Cosmodrome comic book in the music video for Shave My Face Off, which it's on YouTube. So check out MIRV Shave My Face Off. It's definitely done inexpensively, and it's got some clunky early 90s graphics, but it's worth the watch. Have you seen that one, Anthony?
Yeah, I remember it used to be on Beavis and Butthead all the time. It was in one of the episodes.
Oh, really? So it made it onto that show.
Yeah, they were hitting it. I mean, there were a couple. There was Sausage, Primus, and MIRV, and I don't know. Maybe there's another throwback in there too to the Primus community.
Interscope and Prawn Song Records must have had a hand in the cookie jar over there at Mike Judge's place.
Yeah, let me see if I can look it up real quick. Which one it is? Season 6, episode 20 came out March 7th, 1996.
Oh, wow. So 3 years after this record was put together, 1993. So 3 years later, it made it onto MTV.
That's a long time. And that's a small video like that. I think it probably would play on like 120 minutes, like for a month or two. And then you'd never hear it again unless it was like for some weird, obscure ad that MTV would do. They do these like, little animated clips to promote, of the MTV logo, and you'd hear some weird obscure band or something like that. But yeah, Wow. Well, there you go. So if you're a Beavis and Butthead fan, you've probably already sent an angry email to us, primustrackspot@gmail.com, saying, "Hey, I know that episode." Well, thanks. Yeah. Someday I'll watch it. It's a nice one. Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like I knew the music video, but I never made the connection that was MIRV until after the fact. And then it was like, wait a minute, that looks familiar. And then it was like, oh, that was in Beavis and Butthead. I've already seen this. Or like I was introduced to Primus and Sausage on Beavis and Butthead without even knowing it as well. Yeah.
And MIRV's face, of course, is on that TV screen the entire time. That's half the video. MIRV delivering those lyrics. So
a wavy face.
Yeah. Ugh, so sweaty. By the way, if you're at all interested, head over to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. At some point here in the very near future, I'm going to do a dramatic reading of the comic book because it actually prompts you to turn on certain tracks throughout the comic book so you can get the immersive experience of Roy's story. I'm very excited to give you that with extremely low production values. Can't wait.
I was going to say you should do it like Les doing the Rainbow Goblins when he was reading it.
Oh my gosh, all I need is a fireplace and a rocking chair, and maybe Frankie can draw flames and just kind of hold them up so it looks like there's a roaring fire. Let's sample the record, because I'm going to guess many of our primates here haven't heard this one, and if you have, spread the gospel of MIRV, please. Anthony, once again, you used the term variety show, and I think the samples from these first 6 tracks are going to show that. Now, what I don't have, and this might be listed in a place like Discogs, I wish I had looked ahead of time. What I don't have are the specific tracks on which Les plays bass or plays drums. Frankie, can you bring up Discogs for this record and see if it...
It doesn't actually point out, it just has like this general credit, Les Claypool, mixing, production, performance, but it doesn't actually mention which tracks he plays what on.
Ah, bummer. Okay.
I think you gotta pick it by ear.
Well, Frankie's got one of the best Les Claypool ears in all the land, so he'll be able to point out for us what's going on where. Our first song title is The Walk Back Home, and I believe in our story, this is about where Roy finds this guitar.
Walk back home.
Brain or Granddad on drums? What do you think? Sounds like Brain to me.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Because like that groove, the way that he does the kicks, though, that reminds me of Les.
Okay.
He likes to do, but also Brain does it too. I don't know. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm going Brain just because I'm guessing. I'm going Brain.
Going Brain. I'm going to go Les on that one.
Nice.
Just
Frankie, break the tie.
bases.
Sounds like Brain to me.
Oh.
All right. So the vote goes to Brain. One of these days, we'll get a hold of Brain, and we'll find out if he remembers. Or MIRV, he might remember. All right, so that one, to me, first of all, listening to it in these cans, I got to say, those background vocals are disorienting, especially through the left channel. I'm not hypnotized by them, but kind of confused by them, and it doesn't distract from the music, but it does give kind of a dreamy quality to that track, especially with that acoustic guitar. You know, it's nice and driving and it's nice and rocking, but it just gives this strange ethereal layer to it.
Yeah, I'll have to really go into that one. I never really noticed that. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on in that one. And in fact, the lead guitar I always thought was a harmonica, but upon closer inspection, as I was just listening back to it, I was like, wait a minute, that actually really sounds like an old blues guitar played through like a small, really overdriven amplifier.
Yeah, about a 3-inch tweeter.
Yeah, right? Really small one, 3.27773, I would say.
Yeah, I think I've thought the same thing for years, but there's no harmonica credited on this thing, and as we know, MIRV is, he can make a guitar sound like anything, so I'm going to go with your idea there of blues guitar through a very high treble.
Yeah, old school. Yeah, the guitar amp is probably made out of a cigar box as well. Like they went and or an old lunchbox. Who knows?
And MIRV's vocals, that's our first listen to MIRV's vocals on a studio record, as far as I know, and he's playing it straight right there. Of course, that won't be the case the entire record, but this sets the scene for Roy and who he is and what he discovers on his walk home. The next track with music is called On the Prowl. we change gears right away into another musical styling here. Very Latin, of course. Drums there, definitely Brain. I got to go with Brain on that one.
That feels very jazzy, very, very technical. Not that Les isn't technical, but this sounds like very like, oh, okay. I'm throwing in some really high chops.
Yeah. So Les said, let's get Brain in here for that one.
Oh yeah, and there's a couple things about MIRV that you'll find out. He loves Zappa. And he loves his surf.
Yes.
Definite surf.
And that comes to the fore here in one of these other tracks coming up. And of course, if you're more familiar with MIRV now than this record, MIRV has been in a band called Uncle Sea Monster for quite some time, and they play straight up rock and surf music. And they often show up at some of Les's wine events, I believe.
Yeah, they've been in a few.
Once a year.
Yeah.
They often play on a flatbed semi, I think, and I can't remember if that's a wine party or a sauerkraut festival or.
I want to say that was at the Sebastopol Grange. There's a video.
Okay. Yeah, there's video of Uncle Sea Monster playing on one of those flatbeds, and it's pretty cool. The great music. I really like the sounds of Uncle Sea Monster. I'm a surf music fan in general, especially the more hard driving rock and stuff, and it. Actually, it started when I listened to the Beach Boys when I was a kid, and I thought, oh, this is pretty groovy. But then I think I heard a band like Los Straitjackets at some point, and those guys kick ass, So I was like, yeah, this is rock and surf. This is the surf for me. You know what the other one was, Anthony? Was Anthrax's cover of Pipeline. I thought that was ripping.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Huh. They'll throw it down for sure. Yeah, this actually was like MIRV kind of introduced me to a harder version of surf that I never thought possible. Like I thought surf was like, oh, it's this family friendly kind of thing, but then like you'll go to these MIRV shows and then these harder surf things pop up, like the next song, and then like people just lose it and just like start moshing around and bopping with each other, and you're like, wow, okay, they throw down.
Frankie, how many surf songs does Bowie write?
Actually, just one. It was a collaboration with Ribs Gabriels and the Sills Brothers during Teen Machine. It's called Needles on the Beach.
Needles on the Beach. Wow.
Yeah, and it's literally inspired by them walking along an Australian beach and finding a lot of debris, including needles, all over the sand. So they did that song that was actually a contribution to a surf compilation.
First of all, I knew you would have the answer offhand, but second of all, that's a darker surf tune, I imagine, but I would love to check it out. Nice.
Well, so far, MIRV has topped Bowie in terms of surf songs.
Surf output?
Yes.
0.1 MIRV
one
versus
for
Bowie.
MIRV. I also really love the Latin flair to that one, too. It's just got the trilling and especially the guitar parts. So it has that Latin jazz feel to it, which I really appreciate. I'm I'm not a huge fan of Latin jazz, but when I hear it, I like it a lot. I'm not going to go buy all those Herb Alpert and Tijuana brass records that are at every single thrift store all throughout the United States. I'm a fan of the hard driving ones, the ones that really go for it.
I think Hendershot also has quite a surf flavor, no?
There's a reason Les brought in MIRV for that tune, for sure. MIRV made that the coolest surf tune you'll ever hear. If you want to play surf, you call him MIRV. Who else are you going to call?
Bring in the big guns.
Yeah, he's the big gun for sure. Speaking of surf music, the next track on the record, after On the Prowl, is called Surfin' Soviet. And it's pretty rad.
Yeah, this one, speaking of Hendershot, so Les will bust out Hendershot because it's like one of his staple songs.
Yeah.
As part of his solo career. This song is like one of MIRV's like bust out songs in terms of his solo career. He'll bust this one out everywhere. and people will just go nuts.
Oh, really? No matter who he's playing with, he's going to play Surfin' Soviet?
That's kind of one of my like, oh, it's MIRV. I wonder if they're going to play Surfin' Soviet. And so sometimes they do. Obviously, like Uncle Sea Monster, they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes if MIRV will like do a quick set somewhere, like, you know, they might throw that in there. Or if MIRV is playing with another band, like with Les or something, and he has a little like moment, you know, he might do some Surfin' Soviet or something. But it's a really unique tune.
Okay, give you one guess as to who's on bass.
Granddad?
There's no way that's not Les with the attack and that tone, especially because on a couple other tracks, that's the bass tone he has, and it's clearly him. So that's Les having a good time on surf bass, and MIRV just that drenched surf tone. But we caught it first with that distortion, and I forgot about that part where he rips it. Yeah. That's definitely Brain on drums. I mean, a MIRV Brain, Les Claypool trio record, I'd buy it.
Hell yeah. That's a really cool touring lineup right there for anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3/4 of the Holy Mackerel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Surfin' Soviet, I see why that's a favorite, and I see why people get really wound up for that one.
Yeah, it's like that song that goes like da 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 and then by the next thing you know, chairs are flying, toupees are flying.
Yeah,
you know, the jackets come out, and it's like a Muppets little shtick.
This next tune, actually, track number 4, is called Cantina, and it's the only song that MIRV didn't write on the record. And some of you are thinking, wait a minute, Cantina? Is this what I think it is? And the answer is probably. Here's why. It's exactly what you think it is.
Watch out, George Lucas. Hold off all the lawsuits. I mean, obviously, like.
Well, don't worry. They credit him in the notes. They say Cantina written by John Williams, so it's all good. I should note too that it does say all songs written by MIRV. On the Prowl and Surfin' Soviet, House got a co-writing credit, which actually makes me wonder, what if that's House on bass on Surfin' Soviet? Man, that sounds so much like Les, though.
That tone, yeah,
it's the tone.
It's the tone.
Yeah.
It's got to be the tone.
It's the tone. The tone.
Once I heard that tone, I knew. I don't know. That's a dead giveaway to me. Unless like Les would be like, oh, by the way, House, I have my stuff set up, but I want you to play this one. Or House, like, I got an idea, and it's like,
yeah,
you never know though.
Yeah, boy, that tone makes me think it's Les for sure. So I'm second guessing myself, but I'll still lean less on that one. Remember, this is at the Corn, and so it's, you know, the Sausage record kind of has that soundscape, and it runs all the way through the record. And on this one, it's like they're reinventing the sound for every track. And so those drums are tightly packed. You know, you've got that really sharp snare, and you barely hear any of the other drums. And once again, that tin box guitar, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it doesn't even sound like a guitar again, right? And there's just lots of stuff going on. Anthony, I want to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, this one's weird. This one sounds like it's really far away, like you're hearing it at a club or something, but there's like this, what is known as a filter. And so like you scoop out certain frequencies and just chunk them out. So that's how like a wah pedal works. It's like you get all your frequencies and you chop out everything except for like this peak. And then you sweep that up and down. And that's how you get this wow, wow, wow kind of thing. And so I'm not exactly sure how they did it because, I wasn't there, but I would say that they ran it through a filter, like, if it's an auto filter for the wow, 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 it almost sounds like a Peanuts character, scolding one of the kids. Like, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like it's almost like run through a wah pedal in certain parts, or like, there's a lot of, especially like a lot of high end that's rolled off on those guitars, and so it's a unique sound, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what they were going for, because Cantina is, and I'm not a Star Wars guy, so I don't know, but isn't it in one of those space clubs or whatever? So it does make sense that it would sound like it's far away, where they enter this I don't know, the CD joint, and then the band's playing its music over there, and they're trying to make intergalactic deals over here. I don't know Star Wars, so you guys will have to jump in and help me there.
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember they go into like a club, like a bar in this one planet. Maybe it was Tatooine still, or
yes, and Han Solo has a conversation with Greedo at one of the tables, and there are multiple shots where you can see a ton of extras dressed up as aliens, including the amazing Hammerhead, which is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. Only there for like 3 seconds.
And that's Hammerhead's only appearance.
Yes.
Oh, fascinating.
And so what's interesting about that is like the cantina scene is like a tense scene. It's kind of like these people from the outside are in like this local joint, and everyone knows that they're not from there. So it's this weird tension. And actually, I watched this movie, Paul, with Simon Pegg and stuff like that, and they play on that scene as well. And so I'm wondering if there was a theme in the comic that aligns with this song of them, of the guy being like, is he like in an uncomfortable situation, or like is he in a place where he's not supposed to be, or is this him just kind of rocking out and establishing himself?
That's the sound of the tape on my Mylar sleeve for the comic book.
Wait, you don't know where's the gloves? You got to be wearing gloves for this.
Oh, yeah, my hands are oily as hell right now, too. I feel really bad. Sorry, Merv.
You can't see he's been eating Cheetos this whole time, man. He's got
the pages,
orange hands.
They're all orange. Yeah, there it is. Sung to the tune of Cantina. It looks like... And that's what I figured, because it segues into the next track. Roy's there drinking at the bar, having a good time, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there, right? With the big crowd here, having a grand old time. Roy's sucking them down at the bar. And then Cantina ends and goes into a vignette called Seductress, right before Jumpin' Bones, and there it is in the comic book. There's the Seductress. Keep your hats on, boys. After Cantina, we get the Seductress. Oh, I love this part of Jumpin' Bones. This first part.
I got something better to do than stand here and listen to you. Yeah, right. Pick another thought to think. We're all done you with a good strong drink. Anyway, she's not so fine. Choose another state of mind.
I'm going to pause it there because you have Roy's thoughts that he's vocalizing in Merv's voice, and then you get those lower register Frankie voices. Yeah, right. And that's Roy's conscience telling him you're lying to yourself. You definitely want to go home with her. And Roy's trying not to because he's he's being seduced by this woman who may or may not have ulterior motives. I love this track, especially that beginning. As far as Jumpin' Bones go, it's a really cool to groove, and there's just wild stuff happening there. Is this one that they would play every once in a while? When you saw him, Anthony?
Nope.
It's got a cool. It's bouncy.
This one's groovy as hell. I think they might have played this like when the first iteration came out, when they started playing together as a live group. But man, this one would have been fun. This would have torn the house down.
Oh, without a doubt. It's just bounces, It makes me, I don't know. It if you put a different vocal pattern on it, it could be a Cypress Hill song, It's got that really nice bouncy beat to it.
Yeah.
Just like, and I think maybe it's those background vocals too, that, yeah, right. And so that kind of call and response type thing. I don't know. I want to forward to about halfway through the track because there's cool stuff happening here too. That voice is killing me. Okay, gotta ask again. Drums, Brain or Granddad?
Brain all the way.
Brain.
Make it a sweep. I'm going with Brain there. He's hitting that groove. I think that bass is house, though, because I'm not hearing that same tonality from Surfin' Soviet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mid-range in there. So it sounds like, but it's a house feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe this is a pipe wrench in the gears. This is, maybe it was just like, hey, well, Les is like, hey, we're recording at my place. I have my bass rig set up.
Yeah.
Don't touch my settings. You could play through it. But yeah, don't touch my settings. I can't get them back.
That's funny. This could be one of those, too, that it could have been, I mean, MIRV's credited on bass here and there, too. So it could have been him on its own. But that just sounds like the kind of beat that House would love to perform on, considering their performances with the Limbo Maniacs. And that big bombastic beat or backbeat that's going on there. And the Jumpin' Bones, I think, is a highlight for me on this record as I run down the track list. Jumpin' Bones, and actually the next track, Hocus Pocus Ding Dong, I think are the two that are the most memorable for me. Before we check out Hocus Pocus Ding Dong, I wanted to play the very last part of Jumpin' Bones, because I know some of you are wondering, well, what happens with Roy and the Seductress? Here's your answer.
And then it just abruptly cuts.
The abrupt cut is what makes it that strangled scream, and then it's just gone. Love that. I think it's very funny, and it's very well done. And the gal that does the Seductress voice nails it. It's a great performance. That leads us straight into Hocus Pocus Ding Dong. It's such a great cut, and then all of a sudden you've got this next track starting. And it sounds like this. And it sounds like it's going to rock your face off, and it eventually will. That's what I love about this track. No spoilers, this is Les on bass all the way. Love it. Any disagreements that that's not Les?
That feels like Les.
Definitely on Les on bass. It's just got that. He does a couple thump and plucks throughout the track too that really give it away. I don't know about drums. I mean, it could be Les or Brain, because that does sound like a Les groove. It makes me think of One Better or something like that that he plays drums on.
Yeah, even that bass line kind of reminds me of like a fancy band kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it does have a pretty sweet groove. Why don't we play a little more and just enjoy it? And then, Frankie, I want to hear what you think about this track. That chorus is what's really memorable for me in this track, and that, of course, is Les and background vocals. But he's kind of doing a character. Hocus pocus ding dong. He's kind of down in there, doing that thing. And how do you do? Great phrasing, great music there too. It's a fantastic chorus. Really cool stuff. I'm a really big fan of that. This track all over the place. But Frankie, when you hear that chorus, I mean, what does that scream to you as far as a Les vibe?
It's hard to pinpoint. It kind of reminds me of some of the side projects that Les had going on early on during Primus, where he was doing guest appearances mostly. It's got that vibe in the sound.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think it is a good preview of kind of where he goes with a record like Purple Onion, because that has some down home vibes to it too, and approaches, and that's what I really appreciate about this track. Once again, we're just jumping all over the place. We heard a surf song, we heard Cantina, we heard this big electronic beat behind Jumpin' Bones, and now we're hearing this track that MIRV's making this guitar sound over it. I think we get an extended saw solo in the second half of the track. There's just something about this track that kind of has that not a country flair, but just kind of an Americana flair or something to it. That, but it's through the Claypool filter, so of course it's a little bit warped. And just by virtue of hearing his voice and his bass on this one, because this is a MIRV song, but it just seems to fit Les's sensibilities so well, in the sense that those guys probably grew up listening to a lot of the same music.
Very true. And, this is one of those songs that they never played in their later years. If you scour the YouTube, you'll find a performance of this one from early 96. And I thought it was a real treat, because when someone posted that, I was like, wow, they actually played this one at some point? That's so cool. And there's some, older MIRV live footage that's floating around, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, they did that one? That's awesome. That's sweet.
But it's interesting to me that many of these tracks didn't make it as the band, I guess, formed and reformed and recorded Monkey Island and Minefield, and really leaned on those two records as they made their way through the 90s and the aughts. Driving. Okay, $1 million question. Who's on drums?
Brain.
I'm going with Brain again.
I want to say Brain. But part of me thinks that's less trying to sound like Jay Lane, but I could be just putting my own filter on it.
I hear that.
Because it's just got that driving thing again there. So it just sounds like it could be either of those guys, and whoever is playing the drums on this one plays a really nice, steady, straight ahead rock and beat, and doesn't overdo it, because it's the MIRV show, and they let him shine. Even Les's bass line here for that second half of the track is a little more understated than you're used to with him. But of course, it's not his album. It's somebody else's, and he knows how to take a back seat. And that's something that he definitely did in just about every guest appearance he's ever done. Maybe that's why it's so memorable to me, because I go, this is basically a Les Claypool song.
It took a couple years for him to really have an opportunity to establish himself in that regard, but all of the little hints and traces and footprints are there. It takes a little while. So you go back and you're like, it was him the whole time, and it just took him a while to, get noticed or have the time to unleash that.
Just like at the end of Saw.
Yes.
Who's that guy?
Oh my God. It makes so much sense now. All the clues were there.
There was blood everywhere. I should have known. Gosh sakes. Those are all the tracks I wanted to preview for you guys, primates out there. And if you can find it, go get it. MIRV Cosmodrome. It's on CD. I think CD was the only release format. And it's out there. You can find it on some resale sites like Discogs, eBay, and so on. I highly recommend that you go out and get this record and really enjoy this piece of Bay Area history. And once again, our pal Les is all over it. And if you're not familiar with MIRV, This is as good a starting point as any. The guy can play, and he's really fun to listen to. Final thoughts on this record, Frankie? What does it evoke for you?
Final thoughts, MIRV is amazing.
Succinct, to the point, love it. And Anthony, having seen them so many times, and I don't know, do you miss them?
Horribly.
Yeah.
I love them so much. And every time, I mean, if it's the same songs, I don't care. I just love seeing them. They're so fun. Again, for me, having have been exposed to the later iterations and the later songs and then coming back to this and being like, oh, this is actually the roots. You're in for a really interesting journey in the later records as well. The other really staple song was that I would say that they did was Jerky Beef. That was a cool one that they would throw down quite often in the later years. Another song that I quite remember is Shave My Face Off.
Oh yeah.
On the record, it's rocking, but when they play it live, they go hard. Like, it's a really intense song when they play it live. They do not hold back on the distortion and the energy, and so that was a shocker to hear live and be like, wow, that's a bit different than what I was expecting. Yeah, Shave My Face Off was pretty rare, though. I think I only saw them do it once, but Jerky Beef was in the loop.
So with that said, I'm going to go listen to MIRV. You guys are welcome. That's Anthony and Frankie. You guys are welcome to listen to it with me, but Primates, we got to go. We're at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Twitter. Anthony is the smartest one in the room. He doesn't do social media. And thanks again for joining us, man. I really love it when you're here, and I hope we get to attend some kind of show together again in the near future.
Hopefully soon. And I love you guys. I love all you out there. Thank you for keeping this all going. And this is fun. This is always a hoot.
MIRV Cosmodrome. Go get it. Next time, Frankie, stock up on your detergent.
We're doing laundry.
Nailed it.
Beautiful.
Later days.
Willie Mays.